Okay, so now we see in verse 39, we saw in verse 38 where he gave them the instruction to put blue. The blue was to remind them of Yahuah himself. Now he's telling them the purpose of the tassels. The purpose of the tassels was to remind them of his instructions, of his Torah, of his commands, or as we say, of his law. Okay, now in this verse, those who teach that we must wear tassels, and if we don't wear tassels, then we're in violation also of this verse. They'll point to this verse, these words in this verse, and it shall be to you for a tzitzit, or for a reminder, and you shall see it, and shall remember all the commands of Yahuah, and shall do them, and not search after your own heart and your own eyes, after which you went whoring. And they will point to those words in this verse and say, see, the purpose of it is to serve for us to remember his commands, that we might do them. Okay, and so that's why we must wear them. Okay, well, this now tells us why they were given. They were for a reminder. But then there is still another question that we must ask of the scriptures. Why did they need this reminder? Why did they need tzitzit as a reminder? Why did they need tassels as a reminder? And the question this question is answered for us from the scriptures clearly. Okay, so let's look at what we're going to come back to verse 40 and verse 41. But before we do that, let's as a matter of fact, you know what, let me just finish reading this, and then and we're going to cover that point. Let me just, so when I leave here I don't have to come back here. Okay, but keep in mind that question, why did they need a reminder? That is what we must ask the scriptures, because the scriptures tells us why. It gives us the answer. Okay, and so if the scriptures gives us an answer concerning a certain thing, then we must search out that answer. Okay, and the answer will let us know whether or not we still need them today. Okay, so we're going to look at that. So there were, number one then, so tzitzit, let me say, the tzitzit had three purposes. Okay, tassels had three purposes. Number one, it was given to remind the people of Yahuah himself. That's the purpose of the blue in the corner of the tassels. Purpose number two, it was given as a reminder of all of Yahuah's commands, all of his instructions, or all of his laws. Okay, so number one, it was given to remind us of Yahuah himself, to remind Yasharal of Yahuah himself. Okay, that generation, and we're going to look at that further. Okay, because context isolated or puts a time frame on this command. Context puts a time frame on this particular command. Okay, and we're going to see this. But it was given to remind the people of Yahuah himself. That's the purpose of the blue. It was given to remind them of his instructions, of his word. Okay, and his word is Torah. And what is Torah? Torah is Yahusha. That's why the scriptures call Yahusha the Word. Okay, and Yahuchanan tells us that in the beginning was the Word was with Yah, and the Word was Yah. Okay, the Word became flesh, dwelt among us, full of favor and truth. Okay, now, and then the third reason why tzitzit was given was that it was prophetic. You see, everything in Torah is prophetic. It was prophetic of Yahusha coming as our comforter, as our help, as our reminder, okay, or the set-apart spirit. It was prophetic of the work that the Ruach would later come to do. Okay? Everything given in Torah is prophetic. You know, I've read this passage before, but when we study the scriptures, every scripture that we study, it is important to keep this passage in mind. Okay? Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 14 and 15, and it is also stated in chapter 1 and in chapter 2, I believe. In chapter 1 and chapter 2, it tells us that there is nothing new under the sun, and it says it in different ways. In chapter 3, again, it says the same thing, but in a different way. And I'm going to read that. That's Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verses 14 and 15. But when we study the scriptures, anything in the scriptures should be understood with this truth in mind. Okay? Let me go to Ecclesiastes. Ecclesiastes chapter 3. I'm going to read verse 14 and 15. Okay? Everything in the scriptures, when we study the scriptures, we must keep this truth in mind because it governs everything in the scriptures. Okay? Prophecy, anything you study from the scriptures, these verses governs it. Okay? Let's see, verses 14 and 15, Ecclesiastes. Thank you, Aki. He says, I know that whatever Elohim does is forever. I know now forever in this context means for all eternity. Okay? Now, but how does that affect Tzitzit or the covenant that was changed? Okay? You see, if we read the scriptures not having understanding, then we are either going to think that Yah is double-minded, or we're going to end up teaching contrary to the scriptures. Okay, so he says, I know that whatever Elohim does is forever. Now, he put one covenant in place, but then he changed that covenant. So was that covenant forever, as in all eternity? The nature of the covenant, the immediate existence of that covenant was not forever as in eternity, but the principle of all his covenants are forever. Okay, so everything that Yah does, the principle of everything that he does is forever. There is nothing new under the sun. So even though the covenant was changed, the covenant still continues. For example, circumcision in the flesh was a covenant given by Yah. Okay, now that covenant was changed, but was the covenant of circumcision ended? No, it was not. It was simply changed. So the covenant of circumcision continues forever. It's just that the nature of the covenant has changed. Okay, so circumcision is forever, but now it's circumcision of the heart. Thank you, Akot. It is circumcision of the heart. Okay, and so the nature of the covenants have changed, but the covenants are in place forever. It's the same thing with Tzitzit. Okay, the nature of that covenant has changed, but the covenant is forever, and we're going to see that. So Tzitzit still is alive. Okay, but just like circumcision is no longer means anything in the flesh, the threads that you wear no longer has the same exact meaning as they did under the old covenant. Okay, and we're going to look at that. But the nature of the covenant is still alive. Okay, so it was prophetic of a future covenant. So Tzitzit was prophetic. So number one, it served to remind the people of Yahuah. Number two, it served to remind them of his word. And number three, it was prophetic of a future fulfillment of that covenant. Okay, which this fulfillment will be everlasting, and has been and is everlasting. Okay, and we're going to get to that. We're going to see that clearly from the scripture. So I know that whatever Elohim does is forever. There is no adding to it, and there is no taking from it. Okay, there is no adding to it, and there is no taking from it. Now again, what's the context of that? Some people will read that and say, see, whatever he puts in place, it remains exactly the same forever. So if you were to be circumcised in the flesh to be saved back then you still must be circumcised in the flesh today to be saved, is what they teach. But that's a misunderstanding of the scriptures. There is no adding to it or taking away from it, meaning that we have no power to add or take away from his word. Okay? We have no power to add or take away from his word. Okay? Only Yah can make the changes needed to his covenants. Okay? Elohim does it that men should fear before him. Elohim does it that men should fear before him. Verse 15. Whatever is has already been. Now, and this is what I'm trying to get to. Every principle found in Scripture must be looked at through the eyes of these verses. Okay? Whatever is has already been. Okay? So, we, and I said this couple weeks ago, we are living in the past. Okay? We are living in the past continually. And even scientifically, when you think about it, it's just the way Yah created it. This principle governs everything. Okay, let me use something else very literal, for example. Do you know that on a day-to-day basis, on a moment-to-moment basis, as you use your eyes and as you look and as you observe things. For example, if somebody posts something on this wall now, do you know that you're seeing it in the past? You're seeing it in the past. The same principle governs this. What does that mean? Okay, the way your eyes work is that when you see a thing, what happens is when you look at it, the light reflects off of it, sends the signal to your brain, and then your brain interprets it. Okay, so you understand it milliseconds, or you see it by the time your brain processes it. You're seeing it milliseconds later. You're not seeing it as it happens.